oftentimes people have a hard time figuring out which is which, what should we do, how we should do it. And this is based upon which court should we file the claim. Now, there are certain cases that have to be brought in federal court. Any constitutional law claim, we're talking about federal constitution. How many constitutions are there out there? 51. Every state has a constitution, and then the federal government has a constitution. So if it's a federal constitution issue, you gotta go to federal court. Federal statutes, like Title IX, Title VII, anything like that that is based on federal law, if you're gonna challenge it, you have to do that in federal court. So it just wouldn't make sense bringing a federal law to a state court for them to decide, no, the federal judicial system should decide what goes on with federal cases. State courts should handle state-related laws. Diversity of jurisdiction. Let's say we're talking about this accident that we talked about previously, where someone hits somebody else. And let's say the person I hit with my car is from Rhode Island and I'm from Connecticut. Where should we bring the case? Let's say I seriously injure them. I want to bring it in Connecticut. Because I think, the people in Rhode Island might be a little bit slow, they're not as smart, they're not going to be able to help me out as much, whatever it is. I might be biased. And I also might say, look at, you know what, maybe the people in Connecticut are nicer. And they're going to see me as a Connecticut person, they're going to want to rule in my favor, because that other person from another state, they should not be allowed to come into Connecticut. Kind of thing. That could be the perspective that people might have. Or the federal jurisdiction issue is saying, look at, if people are from two different states and the amount of controversy is over $75,000, if it's a $500 case, they're going to say, no, bring it in whichever state you want, kind of thing. But if it's over $75,000, the federal government will say, we want to step in, so that way there's no one-upmanship, no bias, that everyone's on the same playing field. And so this becomes an issue because there are some states that are very, very biased. For example, Alabama is known for their notorious verdicts against large corporations, where they come back with these ridiculous verdicts for hundreds of millions of dollars for a very small injury, with the mindset being, you know what, we're Alabama, we can do this. Because if you want to do any business in Alabama, we want to be able to get you if you do anything wrong here. And sometimes they get appealed to U.S. Supreme Court, and there was one case that went up there and the court came back and said it's cruel and unusual punishment that was meted out by the Alabama court because it's just too ridiculous compared to what the actual injury was. So it might have been like a $10,000 injury and then punitive damages of $250 million. And the Supreme Court came back and said, bad Alabama, don't do that. Maritime cases, if it deals with waterways, even if it's the Connecticut River in Connecticut, that's still going to be a federal maritime case, and the federal courts will hear that. Federal criminal cases, so if you're caught with marijuana and over a certain amount where it's a federal crime, you got to go to federal court rather than state court. Federal contracts, if it's a contract involving federal services, they'll go to federal court, or if it's interstate contracts. So if I am, let's say, the New York Giants, and I bring a player from Illinois to New York and sign a contract with them in Illinois, then to play in New York, where should it be? In that case, it will probably be a federal issue because the contract is between people of two different states, and that will provide more fairness. But you can always have little ways around that. For example, when I bought my house in Connecticut, I was in Texas. The people who sold me the house had made incorrect statements on the seller form for the house. So I sued them in Texas, even though both of us were living in Connecticut at the time, because I was able to use what's called the long arm statute, which is using Texas law through federal court there because I was in Texas when I first signed the contract, when I first wrote the check, when I faxed the contract back to Connecticut. And I did that because Texas had more severe laws to punish anyone for consumer fraud, which included tripling of actual damages, attorney fees, all these different things. So the people I sued had to hire an attorney in Texas. They had to pay damages and all this other stuff. So the moral of the story is don't piss off an attorney because they can make your life very difficult. Because I was able to do the whole case myself, and they had to hire attorneys here and there and every place else to handle the case. And you know, we were in the right, of course, because they made misstatements that are very tangible and very direct, affecting the quality of the house. But that's this long-arm statute. You can use another state's law if you can show some connection. It's called the long arm of the law, and you have some nexus of doing business. So if Coca-Cola has no bottling plants in Connecticut, but they still sell Coca-Cola here, that means they're going to be liable under the state law of Connecticut for different issues. Or it could be if there's a contract between a bottler and a transporter or something from Connecticut to Massachusetts or New York, that's when it's an interstate contract. Now, what do state courts hear? Interstate contracts. If I bought something from ShopRite down the street, and then we have a dispute and goes to court, that'll be in state court, because that is a contract between me, who's a resident of Connecticut, and a store that's domiciled here in Connecticut as well. Tort law, so any personal injury, if I get injured here, I'm going to bring a case in Connecticut. State criminal, violation of state criminal law will be held here, and violation of state law, that's also going to be held here. Now, if it's tort, that is this diversity issue, so amount of controversy over 75,000 people from 2 states, then that's going to be in federal court. And so that's why we always take a look at that. Now, which court can hear the case? It's choice of forum. You can sometimes choose which state or whether the case will be brought in federal or state court. It just depends upon choice by the lawyer. And I'll end up with an example of that. A suit cannot be brought unless it is brought in a timely manner. The statute of limitation prevents a party from bringing a claim if they wait too long. So you have to sue in the right area, but you also have to sue in the right time frame. In most states, personal injury is 1 year from the date of injury. But it also could be 1 date from when you discovered you were injured. So let's say with these sexual molestation cases against churches, a lot of those cases, the person might have been abused 20 years ago, but they have been now going through counseling and stuff, and all of a sudden realize, oh, that's why I am the way I am right now. This is why I've been acting this way, or whatever it might be. Once they realize that, then they have a certain amount of time from which they can then sue. If you are a minor under the age of 18 and get injured, your clock for the statute of limitations does not start running until you reach age 18. So your parents could bring a lawsuit for you, or you can wait till you're 18, and then you have that 1 year to file the claim. There's a wide variety of different statutes of limitations. Some states are, I think Wisconsin is 3 years. Everyone's different. Contract law, it might be different. Property law in some states, it's like, look at, you know what? 10 years. You have 10 years to find this. So if you bought a house and you didn't find anything wrong for the first 9 years, but the 10th year, you find that dead body buried in the basement, you could sue the person that sold you the house if they did not disclose there was a body in the basement. You know, kind of thing, because you have 10 years under property law to file a claim. So it's where to file it, and then how long you have to file it. Those are 2 big issues with jurisdiction and the statute of limitations. Now let me end with an example of statute of jurisdiction, why this is important. There's a case in California that went to the California Supreme Court. And in this case, a woman who was an obese woman, and I'm not talking about like 5, 10 pounds, this is hundreds of pounds overweight, applied to work at a health food store. Now, how many of you, if you owned a health food store, would hire an obese woman who was otherwise qualified for the job? Let's see a showing of hands. Not a single person? Oh my goodness, you guys are law violators, tax cheats, and now you're abusers and discriminating against people. Why not?
Because it's a bad representation of your company.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Would you guys all agree that that's a bad representation of the company? What if the woman can't control her weight? What if she exercises 5 hours a day, burns off 10,000 calories, eats only 2,000 calories, and still is large? Is that fair? And so what happened in this case is that the attorneys filed a claim under the American with Disabilities Act. Excuse me, let me take that back. They filed a claim under California law, under what's called the UNRRA Amendment, which is a civil rights statute in the state of California. And they filed a claim using that law rather than the federal American with Disabilities Act, because under California law, you could get tripling of actual damages under the UNRRA Act. So under the ADA, if she won, she would have gotten back pay, possible lost wages, stuff like that, plus attorney fees. But under California law, she'd get back pay times 3 plus attorney fees. So she went for California law, trying to say, look at, California anti-discriminatory law, I want to use that. So she had a choice of forms, California versus federal government. It went to the California Supreme Court, the case, because it's an issue of, is this in fact discrimination? What the California Supreme Court concluded was that you can discriminate against someone if they're psychologically obese, but you cannot discriminate against someone if they're physiologically obese. Physiological obesity is that you have no control over it. No matter what, you're still gaining weight. I'm trying everything, I'm still gaining weight. Psychological obesity is you've had a 2-hour lecture with me. You're so exhausted, so emotionally drained that you go home, you eat that pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, you open up the car and start licking the inside of it to get every last drop, because that's going to make you feel better inside. That's called psychological obesity. Now, what the Supreme Court of California concluded was that, as I said, physiological obesity is covered, psychological is not. Now, as an employer, you cannot ask, why are you obese? So you can't ask that. So my joke is, well, during an interview, you have cookies on the table. Are you hungry? To see if they're going to jump all over the cookies or not. But there's no way of knowing. So they said that because they did medical tests, she is psychologically obese. They said she's not covered. So she lost the lawsuit because she's not part of the protected class under the statute because she is not disabled according to California rules. If she would have brought that same suit under the American Disabilities Act, she would have won. So sometimes which one you choose will impact whether or not you're going to win and what could be the potential damages. All right, so let's end.